Oui, bonjour. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you're joining us. So you are at the Insider's Guide to University Life for New McGill Parents. So we're really happy to have you with us today. So welcome. My name is Stéphane Cardinal. I'm the Director for Campus and Life and Engagement at McGill. And I'm here with many colleagues. So we'll start with Bianca Brunetti, who is from the Student Wellness Hub. And then we will have a number of parents that will be coming with us to talk about their experience as McGill parents. So first, I will mention Adriana Ordonez. She's the proud mother of Thomas Alvarez, who will be entering the third year of his civil engineering and also a soccer players with the McGill varsity team. So we'll hear from her a bit later. Then we have Leslie Osman. She's not yet in, but she will be there for the question and answer session. She's from Boston, and she's currently living in Montreal with her husband and Matt and her cat Pasha, and near her two sons who are now studying in Montreal, a great city where we are right now broadcasting from. She's also the head of a strategic initiative for Waikiki and loves to bake, walk up the Mount Royal, and read in her spare time. Finally, and last but not least, we have Pakash Singhal. Aside from being the proud father of Aditi, who is pursuing a bachelor in psychology here at McGill, the mechanical engineering grads works as a supply chain consulting professional with Deloitte, located in northern India, Delhi. So welcome, parents. We're really happy that you will complement this presentation. So before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that you can send us any question you have during the question and answer session. We'll be able to take some question and then provide you some answers, and also ask our panel to provide complementary information. So we have our colleague here, Cindy, Marie-Ève, and Connie, who are supporting us today. So we thank them for helping us with this panel today. So without further ado, I will pass on the microphone to Bianca Brunetti, who will provide us great insights. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. Welcome to supporting your new student here at McGill University. Briefly, I'll actually pass it right back to Stéphane to give you an overview of campus life and engagement, and then I will introduce myself a bit more thoroughly.
Yes, hi. Campus Life and Engagement actually is a service on campus that is part of student services that we support a lot first-year students when they come to McGill. So we try to connect them with the different resources that are available, help them navigate a little bit that huge campus that McGill has. In fact, we have two campuses, one at McDonald and the other one downtown. So we're there to connect students, help them a little bit less isolated, bring them, like opportunities to network, whether it's student helping student opportunities or Engage McGill. And we're launching very soon a program that is called Days of Service, allowing students who have been asking for it to have more opportunities to get involved in the community in different sector. So we'll be working on pilot program this coming semester. So without further ado, I think we really want to hear from Bianca. Thank you. I think, Bianca, we
I
cannot
am
hear you.
muted. Yes,
Okay,
I'm good to
sorry.
go. So thank you very much. My name is Bianca Brunetti, and I am the local wellness advisor in the Faculty of Arts. Also part of McGill Student Services is the Student Wellness Hub. And so local wellness advisors are mental health professionals who are located throughout the campus. So I now have colleagues in each and every one of the different faculties here on the McGill campus, as well as specifically in different areas, such as in residences, where we now have a 2S and LGBTQ+, as well as an IB, so Indigenous, Black, and people of color as well. So our role here at the university is to offer one-on-one mental health support to students, as well as come to nice events like this today, provide workshops, support groups, things like that, and help new students, but all students across the campus, to help navigate what the different resources are and find the best ones for them at the different times of their academic journey. And so what I'm here to introduce for everyone today is that, beginning the academic journey in university can be a challenging one. Change is hard. And so I'm going to highlight 6 different areas of adjustment that new university students tend to experience overall, and where you as parents can be aware of what sort of resources your students can access. So one of them, of course, is emotional. And so sometimes challenges that would not be uncommon in your first year would be experiencing feelings of homesickness, coping with the new stress of a new city, new environment, and new academic challenges, and developing strategies for handling different mental health issues. So there are many resources which students can access in order to help with this. So there is the Student Wellness Hub, which is the one-stop shop for all different physical and mental health services. And so students can here access local wellness advisors, such as myself and my colleagues. We have doctors and nurses, sexologists, dietitians, psychiatrists, just to name a few of the different professionals which students can access now that they're here, as well as the Office for Sexual Violence Response and Education, where students can reach out for education, but also should there ever be an instance where they feel that they would require this type of specific support. The Peer Support Center, where students can get support from other students who are trained in active listening, and of course the Dean of Students Office, whose role is to support and advocate for students, among many other things. Academic is yet another realm, and so challenges within this realm might include developing different self-regulatory behaviors like time management, working on avoiding procrastination, maybe now that they're receiving a little bit less supervision than they have in the past, establishing relationships with their professors, instructors, and teaching assistants, and managing classes and the academic workload. So here, different resources students can access would be tutoring services at McGill, whether from the Tutorial Services Center or looking for a peer tutor from the different student associations. This is now a misnomer. Our Office for Students with Disabilities has been renamed Student Accessibility and Achievement. Here, students can get academic accommodations, meet with access advisors about how to access services, and find different workshops on time management and study skills. Students can also engage in Skills 21, so extracurricular credit, which they can put towards the workforce afterwards if they'd like. Access office hours and attend tutorials. Of course, it's important to have a close working relationship with their TAs and their professors. They can access the McGill Writing Center and for help with writing their papers. And there's also a Francophone student support specifically. Social, of course, is another really big realm, and so challenges within this area might look at experiencing changes in relationships, whether familial, romantic, or trying to manage old and make new friendships, developing strategies for living with roommates and new neighbors in a new environment, and handling social situations which might involve peer pressure. So here at McGill, we can offer, of course, as you're already introduced to, campus life and engagement. This is an excellent time to connect with that resource and get oriented with the campus. So then there's also the SSMU SMU, also known as the Student Society of McGill University. They have a specific first-year council, which students can explore. Then each and every faculty will have an undergraduate society, which students can touch base with to learn about different activities, about what's going on and what resources they have within their specific faculty. Freshman Student Society, and then new student reps. Then there's always peer support as well, so students helping students. So within International Student Services, students can sign up to find their first friend, where you can have 2 first-year students connected with one another, or the mentorship program, where a student can sign up to be paired with someone who's already been at McGill for a little while in order to help get oriented to Montreal and the McGill campus. Orientation leaders are a great resource to access as well. And residence life, so encouraging your students to connect with their floor fellows, residence life facilitators, and the residence council. Intellectual. So coming into university, there might be a shift in previously held values. There's so many different options that students can take at this point in their life, so maybe feeling uncertain about choosing a major and taking calculated risks that move outside of their comfort zone. So resources that can help with this within student services, once again, is the CAPS office, the Career Planning Service. So they can book an appointment with a career counselor, explore the different offerings that they have, such as workshops. They can, within this office, they can connect with life after your degree and start to look at what their future might look like. And it's always very important for students as well to make sure that they're aware of where their student affairs office is and take the time to connect with faculty advisors if they feel that that would be helpful to make sure that they're meeting all their graduation requirements and help to manage their transcript in that way, as well as their departmental advisors to make sure that they're meeting their specific program requirements. And they can always meet with a career or internship advisor within their specific faculty as well. Cultural. So challenges may include living and learning within a diverse student body, adjusting to language differences amongst classmates, roommates, and faculty, and within the climate here in Montreal, being a bilingual city, understanding their own bias-related belief systems as well. So an excellent resource within student services is international student services, which I would encourage any international students to be well versed in their website and all of the different offerings that they have. The McGill International Student Network is great for peer support of making sure that students can connect with others and get to know the different offerings that they have. So the SMU, as I mentioned earlier, also has cultural clubs that students can get engaged with if they're looking for a little bit to connect with other individuals from the similar culture. And then there's also MORSL, which is the McGill Office of Religious and Spiritual Life, where students can drop in and connect with different faith-based leaders, peers, enjoy a nice meditation space, as well as many other services. And of course, financial as well will be something that students may be engaging in for one of the first times in their lives, where challenges may include developing budgeting and financial literacy skills, understanding tuition costs and navigating financial aid, and finding and managing a job in the future. And so what you can suggest here is, again, within student services, we have scholarships and student aid office, who are the experts in all of the different areas of student funding that students, among many other services which students can connect with, as well as My Future, held out of the CAPS office of look searching for different jobs on and around campus and off of campus, of course. And Student Accounts is a great website that students can explore in order to get to know what that looks like here at McGill. So all of the different services that I've just highlighted here, these are all active links, so where you could find all of the different information that I just shared. That's it. I'll stop sharing my screen so that we can move into our panel.
Thank you, Bianca. That was very informative, lots of information to absorb. So we are now moving into the panel. Now we're going to use the expertise of Bianca, Leslie, Adriana, and Pakash, they are parents of current students at McGill. So I'm going to maybe start with the first question that I received. So what advice do you have for parents if they see their students are not feeling motivated? So I'm going to start with that. Bianca, do you want to start with this? And then maybe we'll ask one parent to help us see it from their perspective.
Sure. Here, thank you for passing the question to me. I think that one step that they could certainly take would be to reach out to the Student Wellness Hub if they would like to perhaps connect with a local wellness advisor such as myself so that we could explore that with a mental health professional. Or I would say as well, to check in with their peers. It's likely that their peers are feeling similarly, or check out something like the Peer Support Center as well.
Thank you, Bianca. So which parents would like to try and answer based on your experience? So Leslie, do you want to start?
Sure. Hi, everyone. So what I would say is that my son found that the workload was intense but manageable, and that the students who come to McGill are relatively serious about their studies. Not that they don't have fun, but that they do take their studies seriously. And so I think he found that it was a culture that was very supportive and conducive to taking your studies seriously and getting your work done. And so, I think that they can count on not necessarily peer pressure, but certainly a culture of taking your status as a student to heart.
Okay, thanks, Leslie. Much appreciated. So, Adriana, do you want to start? What advice do you have for, if if the student is not feeling motivated or then gives the impression of not being motivated?
Yeah, I would say if it's academically, I would agree with Leslie, relying on your peers and finding study groups, and it's a great tool. If it's more in terms of mental and wellness, I would say enjoy or start exploring the facilities in campus. I know that my son, he had a challenging startup because he started during COVID, but using the facilities of the university, the swimming pools, the athletic facilities, because he's an athlete, and also going to the library and finding, just being with other people. That was a good thing for him.
Okay, good. Pakash, do you want to give us your perspective as well?
Pretty much covered by both the parents, and I did not face this kind of experience with my daughter.
Okay, maybe I can, from an administrative perspective, like we have career planning services has a website called My Involvement, and I just noticed because we promoted that there is a little workshop coming about lack of motivation. So there are workshops being offered by the university in different departments. So there's one that was actual motivation. So reach out to the services as well, and sometimes it's not about the peer, but it's about finding trick tips. So there's a number of workshops being available. So thanks everyone for this first question and your answers. Then maybe now the next question would be for Bianca. Do students have to make appointments for the wellness hub, or or can they just drop in? And what are the hours of operation? And if students are feeling anxious, what are some of the tips that you can share from a staff perspective? And also, and maybe if the parents have also some of their children were feeling anxious, if they have some other additional suggestion. So big question, Bianca.
I may need you to, I feel like that was maybe three
Okay,
questions
so
in one, but let me start.
Yeah.
Yes, so first and foremost, it's an excellent question. Yes, so there are not many drop-in services in order to get, students will need to book an appointment to access any of the services within the Student Wellness Hub, local wellness advisors and access advisors included. And then so there's different ways of doing that. But.
Yeah, the hours of operations they're on the website, but would you be able to communicate that?
I believe that they are 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. that the hub is open to call. But access advisors and local wellness advisors also have an online booking page, so students can go ahead and book those appointments themselves without having to call if they'd like to access those services.
Okay, and the last question is like, okay, so if a student feel anxious, what are some of the tips that you share with those that you've met?
Absolutely. First and foremost, of normalizing that feeling of anxiety. That first year in particular is a strong one, and so anxiety falls on a spectrum, and it's something that we're all going to experience to one variety of level of intensity to another. First and foremost, I am big on checking in on your basic needs. So checking in, when was the last time, how are you eating, how are you sleeping, when was the last time that you got some physical exercise, because that's really helpful in managing feelings of anxiety. And when was the last time that you had checked in with someone that you cared about? So checking those basic building blocks of when was the last time that you had some fun, as well. As we said, McGill is a very competitive academic environment, but also a supportive one. And so just making sure that there's a little bit of that work-life balance. And I would say you can access Keep Me Safe, which all students can access a licensed counselor for free if they'd like, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So that might also be a great place to check out. And there are lots of tips and tricks on the Student Wellness Hub website as well.
And I think, Bianca, is this true that Keep Me Safe can work in different languages?
Yes, over 60 different languages, and students can access their services from anywhere in the world.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Thank you. Any of the parents would like to add to that in terms of if you've heard how your children or others, friends of them, how they dealt with anxiety? Anyone wants to try? Adriana or Leslie?
I would
Oh,
I would
okay.
say that with my son, it was making sure that he keeps a balance between studying and taking care of himself. And I see that it's kind of a progressive approach, because first year, if they're in residence, they don't need to worry about food or other things. And then the next year, it progresses to taking more responsibility. So it's making sure that there's a balance between academic and eating well and exercising and having that right balance.
Yeah, thank you. Leslie, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I would just say that reach out to a peer as well. Not that the official resources aren't important too, but often if they are feeling anxiety, they will find that the people around them might be very sympathetic or feeling it themselves. And sometimes just getting out and enjoying Montreal, going and sitting in a park or grabbing a coffee with somebody on their hall, it can just really kind of help to give them a little breather and a little perspective.
Yeah. Pakash, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would say, apart from going out and enjoying, definitely these things would be helpful. Additionally, those kids can also focus on mental exercises and, meditation kind of things. Basically, they also help a lot during anxiety.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. I think one thing that I mean, looking back, but also talking to some of our students, I have a student coming from Kenya in my office, and then what she said that at the beginning, especially transitioning in the first year, what was very important for her was to also even reaching out home, and they talk about what's happening at home. So just that feel of normalcy, that with at home everything is continuing as normal, was also helping reduce a little bit the stress. So don't forget that, even if you just say that you've done the grocery or things like that, this is still interesting for them to feel like, okay, home is still connected with what's happening like they were there. So just keep this in mind. The other piece I would say is also, this is a journey, not just a destination, right? So oftentimes we look at the diploma, yes, this is what they're coming in for, but also it's about learning, growing as adults, young adults. So so we're the peers and then the system that we have in place at McGill can help them. I have another question. So this one is for Bianca. So does the Wellness Hub have clinician on site?
Yes, they absolutely do. We have clinicians on site within the Student Wellness Hub, and then local wellness advisors such as myself are located on site in each of the different faculties. So being in the Faculty of Arts, I'm located on site in Dawson Hall near the Arts Building.
Thank you, Bianca. So I have another question. As a parent, I would like to know, whoops, sorry, the thing moved. As a parent, I would like to know from the other parents, what is the biggest issue found that they needed to do to help their student with that first year? And I think I'm going to start now with Pakash. I don't think we hear you.
Is it biggest issue? Could you please repeat the
Yeah.
question?
Okay. As a parent, what is the biggest issue that you found that you needed to do to help your student throughout this first year? Your daughter, sorry.
Uh, so I would like to, start with, mentioning what were the challenges faced by my daughter. So basically, when you are going to a different country, different culture, so the couple of things like focus on French, emphasis on French for non-francophone people outside McGill, then adapting to a different culture, different academic culture, as well as social structure, then communication styles, work ethics, every thing. I mean, each of these things have got a different learning curve, and you make mistakes first and then figure out, then successful, then you take a lesson of that and then you improve yourself. So all these things are basically the issues faced by an incoming student into a foreign country. Of course, healthcare system is also one thing which my daughter faced some issues with. not exactly healthcare system, but the way healthcare system is structured over there. So there are differences within, the way things are organized in our part of world with respect to, in Canada. So all these things were, initially difficult, or she was required to understand and then learn, and then eventually things settle. Actually, all these hardships give, at the end, they also give lessons, and they teach you something. So overall it's an enriching experience, but yes, initially you have to put some efforts.
Okay, thank you. Leslie, would you like to add before I ask Adriana?
I think for our son, it was very much about trying to help him solve his own problems. I before we sent him to McGill, everybody really said that McGill expects the students to step up and take responsibility, sort of. We called it adulting, to learn to become an adult. And so we really tried to sort of buy into the spirit of that and to encourage him to take advantage of the resources that were around him, and to sort of ask him questions rather than telling him what we thought he should do. If he did come to us saying, well, what have you tried, or have you asked anyone, or what do you think you should do? So we tried to just help encourage that transition. And he was very enthusiastic about it, I will say. It was truly amazing to us, even in the first year, to change from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. So for us, it was just really encouraging him to problem solve, I guess, if you will.
Yeah, okay, great. Thank you for that. Adriana, do you have something to add?
Yeah, for my son, I think it was COVID and adjusting to COVID, but luckily your kids won't need to face that. So that's a great thing, actually. And I would say for him, the other thing was academically, when they come from college and they made it into a great university, so they're likely great students. So they already know where they sit in terms of their peers. They get to university, and and my son is a high achiever, so just finding his spot and seeing how the academic demand was going to be. It took, I would say, the first semester and seeing, realizing how he was going to do, and then now it's better. Now he knows where he stands and he knows what he needs to put in to get the outcome that he wants.
Okay, thank you. Actually, there's a parent who just a very great question. Like some of our kids are very talkative, others are less communicative. So if this parent is wondering if their children is not reaching out to them, so how do you actually bring them to communicate with you? So did you have that? Any tips that you have to share? Like you had to like really call often and then, don't give up until they call back, or you write to them. So any tips you have in terms of opening up and being able to be forthcoming about the challenges they face? Let me start with Leslie, who looks like she's thinking about some experience, maybe.
I have two boys, and boys are not known for being incredibly good communicators. But we found with both our sons, one is McGill and one is Concordia, but with both that texting is something they seem to prefer, and that's probably specific to your child, but maybe figuring out which way they're most likely to communicate with you. For ours, just a little text back and forth was nice, and it was a quick check-in. We also tried to talk once a week, which was what worked for all of us, but at a set time. So we tried to say, okay, we'll talk every Sunday evening or Sunday morning, so that there was sort of that expectation. And I also really had to learn to accept that I was not going to have a good sense always of what was going on with them. It's just, once they're out your door, you have to accept that we don't know what they're eating every day, and just all of that. So I think some of it was for me and my husband also to make that adjustment to having a child away at college.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's Pakash, given the fact that you're talking about India versus Canada, so how did were you managing the communication with your daughter?
Yeah, it's on daily basis. So roughly this is the time we talk on, video calls.
Okay. So it was happening, and you didn't have to ask too much. That was coming up, the information and the communication.
Yeah, I mean that way it happens. Sometimes now she is doing some projects and this university job. So sometimes maybe 5 days a week we are talking, and couple of days she does not gets time.
Okay. Okay.
And she
Heather,
was, oh,
go ahead.
I
Go
mean,
ahead.
I have an experience over here. She was a person who did not like to talk too much, and we kept on nudging her and pushing her to keep on improving her public speaking skills. And ultimately she landed with a job in ISS, and she has to conduct a lot of seminars and workshop now, these days, and that has improved her confidence a lot. So I would suggest to take a dive, and then you will learn how to swim.
Okay, great advice. Adriana, do you have one more advice for our parents who are online?
Yeah, kind of on what Leslie mentioned. The hours, just for me to get used to his hours, are now, even though we're in the same time zone, he studies very, very late. He sometimes wakes up very late. So I text, and I now don't expect a text right away. And I might get a text in 2 in the morning when I'm asleep. So just adjusting, knowing that they have their own schedule, and
Yes.
you'll get answers eventually.
Yeah, I guess the transition is not just for the student, it's also for the parents, eh? We all learn to adjust. Okay, thank you for that. I have another question. Should, as a parent, create a wellness plan, balancing physical activity, nutrition, mental well-being with my student? So basically helping the student develop their plan is I think what the question is. And then did you actually try that? Any of the parents, Leslie, Pakash, or Adriana, did you try to let them figuring out this issue with their wellness plan, or you let them develop their own way of making sure they stay healthy?
So,
Pakash.
yeah, so broadly, she takes her own calls. Just we, give a little bit of advice, maybe 10-15%. I just oversee her what she is doing, and then probably whatever is to be added or not. That is the kind of advice.
Okay. And Leslie, do you have any? Were you helping making the plan, or you let go?
I mean, we let go. I think, again, if Connor asked us for advice, if our son asked, of course we would help, but that was something he really handled on his own.
Yeah. Okay. Adriana, were you involved, or he went ahead and did his own plan?
On his own. And as much as you want to know and be there, they're in another city, they're living their own lives, so they'll find their way. It's more for us, it's more just giving advice from time to
Yeah.
time.
Okay. Bianca, from a staff perspective, we see some of the students coming to you, and then, we always talk about the wellness wheel at McGill. So do you have any suggestion or a compliment? So clearly, we heard from the parents so far that depends on the child, but you might have some tips.
I was going to say too, I think each student sort of needs to find what works for them as well, right? And navigating a new sleep schedule, being able to follow their own rhythms and things like that. So sometimes I think it's a little bit of a trial and error of finding out what works for each of them, and that it doesn't need to be perfect, right? That I think each person needs to find what works for them. But I mean, from the parent perspective, I think that something that I firmly believe as a staff member here is also just reminding them that it's okay to go to bed. Like, it's important to go to sleep, get enough hours, whatever that looks like for you, you know, and finding ways to you know, enjoy grocery shopping or things like that. But I think it never hurts to get those friendly reminders from outside services, whether it's people working at McGill or from back home, of just like, how's that going? But let them manage it themselves.
Yeah. Thank you. Now I have a question which I think might be for you, Bianca. How and where do we submit the form SE 401Q102, which I'm not aware of that one, to ensure that our daughter have a health insurance? Do you have the answer to that, or this is a question we would refer to the International Student Services?
Sorry, that's not a form I'm familiar with, but I would guess, I guess I wonder if any of the parents actually have the answer to this, if it's something that they have dealt with.
Yeah, I think for anything that to do with the health insurance and you know, like making sure that you have the good coverage, it's best to reach out to the International Student Services. I think Bianca provided the link, and they have different section on their website around the permit and then health insurance, and they're available right now to. We're still in the opening hours to answer emails and answer your question. So sorry about that. The other ones we kind of answered. So now if a student falls sick, is there a clinic or a doctor on campus that they can access? Bianca?
I'll start with this one, sure. So yes, there is a clinic located on campus. However, you do need to call for an appointment. So especially if a student is just feeling a little under the weather, what I highly encourage as well to cut down on wait times for them is we also have a lot of different telehealth services. So I encourage everyone to get familiar with the Student Wellness Hub website because they have the links to all of those. And so international students can use getmaple.ca where they can consult with a doctor and it's fully covered by their Blue Cross insurance virtually first with likely shorter wait times. TIA Health is a great one for Canadian residents. And then there's also Dialogue, which is another way that all McGill students can quickly speak with a doctor. And then, of course, you can call the Student Wellness Hub and request an appointment with a GP. And then on the website, there are also links to all the different local clinics within the area. And another great resource that all students should know being in Montreal is if they can also call 811 to connect for free, to speak with a nurse, to talk about some of the symptoms that they might be having, to figure out what would be the best next step for them. And the nurses there are also great about finding what services are open in the community as well.
Thank you, Bianca. Then, okay, I have another question. My daughter is a high achiever and works until late hours to keep up with studies. Is there a place where she can go to learn perhaps better time management? I know that there are workshops being offered by Student Achievement and Accessibility, Time Management. The unit, also Teaching and Learning Services, offer as well time management workshops. They're happening regularly. I think during the Discover McGill this week, we will be offering the time management workshop, but I think it happens at different time during the year. And then I think you have the links at the back of the presentation from Bianca. And the parents that have used those workshops are aware of that type of workshop that was taken by their child? No. Okay. But I mean, those are two resources. Bianca, would you know of others in terms of time management?
I think you covered them all for time management. I wonder if skills for strategic not procrastination, but there's also a workshop on perfectionism that I wonder if that might be relevant that students can access through my involvement.
Yeah, thank you. Great. Sorry. I would like to ask, beside yoga and meditation, do you have suggestion as to that in terms of strategy to help alleviate the anxiety of the first few weeks at McGill? Bianca, I would like to start with you.
I have to go back to the physical activity, I think is a really great way too. But I'm making that vague on purpose. Again, I think it's finding whatever makes that person feel good. So if that's walking, for some it's getting out into nature. So maybe taking advantage of going up Mount Royal while the weather is beautiful. Athletics and recreation. Also, the gym is open for the first few weeks of campus. So I would say if you can connect with some peers and get active, I guess, and explore the city in whatever way, that could be a great way as well.
Okay, any tips from Leslie or Adriana? What your child did for alleviating their stress in the first few weeks?
So I wonder if the question is specifically about the first few weeks. Getting there, obviously, for the students getting there, obviously there's anxiety because everything is new. I just remember when we were getting to the residence, my son being anxious about not knowing anyone, and few hours later, he was okay. So they start meeting people right away, and the activities that the university has planned for the students for the first year students for the first week really help. So if the concern is like when you get there, I understand that they feel the anxiety, but it really goes away pretty fast because they start finding their way around the campus. They start meeting people, and it gets very, very smooth fast.
Thank you, Adriana. Leslie, anything to add or?
I just still come back to trying to connect with their peers. So again, if they are feeling anxious or lonely or homesick, at the very beginning, it's normal. And likely their next door neighbor feels the same way in the dorm. Yes. So, connecting. And again, sometimes we did just sort of remind our sons, like, you're kind of not supposed to feel this way, but it's not surprising to feel this way at the very beginning. And that's okay. And it's not going to last, Yeah. And so sometimes just sort of validating maybe how they're feeling and reminding them that it's temporary.
Yeah, thank you. Pakash, do you want to add or you've covered?
Yeah, so basically, those kids can take one thing at a time. Don't, get stressed because of, so many things are happening. Being thrown into a new environment. And my daughter used to climb on Mont Royal just to take a walk and get herself relieved.
Yeah, thank you. Actually, at this time of the year, and once the rain and the fall is falling and the winter comes, but it's a really nice time to walk downtown. And even we're not very close from Montreal, so basically you can walk and do exercise. So I think, and do nice deep breathing. You're right that we have a lot of activities planned in the coming days for new students. Actually, tomorrow morning from 9:30 to 1, rain or shine, we'll have a Discover McGill, and students will be able to know about the different services that Bianca mentioned earlier. But we also have, clubs and groups that will be having some tables. And actually, in the first week of September, just after Labor Day on the 5th September, so my understanding is potentially the 7th or 8th of September, there will be a lot of clubs reaching out, doing what we call activity nights. So students will be able to identify other students who may have the same interests and then get to know other people. I think also those who live in residence right now, there's a nice scavenger hunt happening tomorrow. Again, it's having fun going in the city, but also, having fun with peers that are next to you, so you get to meet other people. They may be your neighbor. So there's a lot of activities that may be happening. I know Campus Life and Engagement, we're going to try to look at more programming that helps a little bit those first few weeks. I think we've been very busy with return in-person orientation. For the last 2 years, it was not really in person, a little bit, but not so much. So there was a lot of returning into that mode. But I think, yeah, you gave great advice. Thank you, Leslie, Pakash, and Adriana on this note. I think it's normal to feel anxious. I think you learn how to, manage it over time. I have another question here. How soon do first year students need to start making plans for living arrangement for their second year? Any of you parents having a child now in their own apartment? Leslie? Okay, Prakash, why don't you start?
Yeah, so she started looking for apartments around January or February. and it took about 2 months for her to figure out a suitable apartment.
And she moved what, for July 1st, or she moved after the school year?
May 1st itself, because it was COVID time. Immediately COVID was declared and she could not come back, so she
Okay.
had to stay
Okay,
for
fair enough.
2 days there.
Okay,
Same.
Leslie, did you wanted to add?
So some students do begin very early in the second semester. A lot will even start a little later than that. What I find is that as soon as they start to hear that even one student is looking, they're already worried that they're behind and they're not going to have anyone to live with and they're not going to have anywhere to live.
Yeah.
That is not true. So they early to mid second semester is a great time to do it. One thing, we're American, and one thing we found was that there are also lots of apartments where they sort of will rent out the rooms individually. So even if you don't have a group of people, you can still end up living with other people. So they're typically furnished, and it's a lot of students. Sometimes it'll even be students from multiple universities, so they get an even broader community. So you'll also find that the parent sites, some of the parent Facebook groups will say, oh, my son is looking for a place, or my daughter has an empty spot in her apartment. So just second semester, mid to early, and just reassure your student that they will have a place to live and that everybody gets stressed about it in the beginning, but it works out.
Thank you. I'm seeing the time pass. There are a couple of questions I want to answer before I ask each panelist to provide one last takeaway to keep the time of that workshop. So is there a fee for peer tutoring? As far as I know, many of the peer tutoring programs are free on campus. Bianca, do you know of any peer tutoring that is that you have to pay for? I don't think so.
This isn't something I'm extremely well versed in. I would assume if you went private that there might be a fee, but if it's organized for McGill, then I believe, as you're saying, that it would be covered, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they're different. The tutoring center, they're different. Yeah, you're right that you can hire for a fee, but there in McGill there's some level of support that is provided. I would look at the free options before starting paying personally, but as a parent. So I will. There's one more question. Okay, someone asked to repeat the name of the multilingual helpline. It's Keep Me Safe. Yeah, Keep Me Safe. I think it's on the back of the presentation that will be available in the chat, my understanding. Okay, so whoops, sorry.
It's absolutely on the Student Wellness Hub website, which is definitely linked there.
Actually, there's a very good page on that website. It's important. I call it important numbers. You have community resources, help. It's a very good page to keep, to identify and tag in your for future references. Not that we want you to have to use it, but for future references. Okay, so someone asked, was mentioned briefly in the presentation about students getting involved on campus. Can you share a bit about how students can get engaged with club sports and extracurricular activities? Okay, so if you look at the McGill website, there is a subset of the McGill website called Engage McGill. So basically, it's a number of student groups, department, services that actually are getting involved on campus. They're looking for volunteers to help them with events or different projects. And you also have some of them actually getting involved in the community as well. Like, for example, the Office of McGill, Office of Religious and Spiritual Life, as a number of different organizations it works with. And at Campus Life and Engagement, we're trying to build a new relationship to actually go in and get involved. For sports and clubs, actually, if you go to the Student Society of McGill, again, if you can, there's 230 clubs, there are 17 services. They will all be coming out first week of September once orientation, the classes are started. So, but on the website, you can already identify a few and then, send them an email if you, once you find the one that you're interested in. Then there was a question around if a student falls sick, is there a clinic or doctor on campus? We said yes. And I think we also have on the Student Wellness Hub the information to access local community services. Bianca is saying yes, so I think we covered that. Okay, so there's a question around, are we expecting students to move out of residences during the December break? And do they have a choice of staying in residence after completing 1 year in May? I don't have the answer to that. I don't think they have to get out of their residence in December, especially if they're staying for, after. But I think it's best to reach out to housing because things may change or be a little bit different from 1 year to another. I think the COVID has taught us to be flexible and not anticipate things to, but I think we can reach out to housing on their website. They would have the information. But I think, do you have any advice on that, Adriana and Leslie, regarding this particular question? Whether your children had to move out in December or?
Oh no, in December it's business as usual. They can stay there, or if they go back home, it's okay. So yeah, the place is still there. And from what I know, in at the beginning of May, pretty much, or at the end of the year, pretty much everyone moves out.
Okay. And Leslie says yes. And Pakash already told us that his daughter to found another apartment outside. Okay, so I think we're at the time. Unfortunately, we have to stop asking questions and then move to the last takeaway from our panelists. So again, one last takeaway to parents, one piece of advice we didn't touch on so far and through the question that we received that you would like to share with us. I will start with Adriana. I'll go in alphabetical order. Here you go.
Okay, so I'll steal Pankaj thunder a little bit. I would say take it one step at a time, and things really resolve on their own, and don't get overwhelmed, because if you do one step at a time, you're good.
Okay, thank you, Adriana. Bianca?
I would say if you can encourage all students to know that there's no question too little or too big, that it's best to be proactive. And if they're not sure about something, that there are so many services, as you can see from my brief presentation. So don't hesitate to reach out or explore to any of them, including the wonderful peer supports. I really back up this idea too of check in with your peers, because you're definitely not the only one feeling whichever way you're feeling.
Thank you, Bianca. So now I'm moving with Leslie.
It's hard to pick one thing. I will say that my son's time at McGill has been absolutely wonderful for him, and it's been wonderful to see him grow. So I would say sometimes just remembering to stand back and let them take the lead in sort of figuring things out. And that can be really hard as the parent. But I'd say to the extent that you can stand back and let them try to step up as much as possible, that is going to be really helpful for everyone.
Thank you. Pakash?
I would say basically it's a good university, and there are quite good resources available. So even if you feel anxious in the beginning, keep patience, and things will settle down. Just keep your eyes open, and things will settle down.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Bianca, Adriana, Pakash, and Leslie. You provided great insight. My daughter is not yet going to university, but I'm taking away what you all said. So I think if I try to summarize, there was a lot of good information that was provided today in terms of resources, so they're available. But I think what we heard from our parents today is actually trust your child, that they'll know what to do. Poke them once in a while to make sure that they, they keep the line of communication, and then that they know that you're there to help them. And don't forget, it's a big campus for all of us here, the administrative staff and programming staff and doctor. We're all here to help your child. So none of us wants them to not struggle. So we are there to help them. And I think, we will try to sort of organize organize activities so they are feeling at the beginning not too lonely. But at the same time, I think they will find what they need to do to be successful. I also say often to students in first year, don't try to do too much. Just learn to figure out that your transition the first semester, and then the second semester works better because you're more settled. So then you can go and once you've done your shopping in terms of clubs and things and activity in the first semester, then the second semester you can start building your finishing your first year and then going into the second, third, and fourth, and be very resilient and successful. So thank you so much, everyone. It was great meeting panelists and then Bianca. And then wishing you all the best and then a great entry for your child this year at McGill. Thank you.